So today we are looking at factorization of algebra. So yesterday, as I said, we started on this journey looking at factorization of algebra. We looked at what an algebra is. We also looked at factorization of simple algebra. But today we are going to go a step further to look at factorization by grouping. Okay? When you have an algebra that is to be factorized by grouping, then it's important for us to know how to factorize by grouping. Okay? So, but before we go ahead to do that, we are going to revise what we learned yesterday briefly. We're going to do a brief revision on what we did yesterday. So yesterday we did some examples. I'm just going to write one here. If we are looking at something like 12x squared plus 4x. So if we are expected to factorize this algebra, 12x squared plus 4x. Factorization of algebra simply means introduction of bracket to the algebra. So this is an algebra. How do we know that this is an algebra? An algebra is a mathematical expression containing numbers and alphabets. So when you look at this expression here, you can see numbers in it. When you look at the expression here, you can also see alphabet in it. So here we have the number 12, we have the number 4. Here we have x and we have x. So this qualifies to be called an algebra. So we can factorize this. How do we factorize? We look at the numbers 12 and 4. What is the largest number that can divide both 12 and 4? What is the largest number that can divide both 12 and 4? The largest number that can divide both 12 and 4 is 4. Okay? The largest number that can divide both 12 and 4 is 4. So we bring that outside the bracket, and then we look at the alphabets. Here the alphabet is x squared. Here the alphabet is x. So what is common between x squared and x? X squared is the same thing as x multiplied by x, while x is just simply x. So what is common between these two? What is common is x. So there is no other x common here. So what is common is x. So this means what we are going to have outside the bracket is x. From yesterday's class, we said when an alphabet is appearing twice, you pick the one with the smaller power. Okay? If an alphabet is appearing twice, you pick the one with the smaller power as the common factor. Once you've gotten the common factor for the number and alphabet, you open the bracket. And then this value is going to be divided by this. This value is going to be divided by this. So let's go. 12 divided by 4 is going to give us 3. Right? X squared divided by x. X squared is x multiplied by x. When you divide it by x, 1x will cancel out 1x. So we have x left. So this will give us x. Okay? So we are done with this one. We bring our plus sign down. Next, 4x divided by 4x. So 4x divided by 4x. 4 is going to cancel out 4. X is going to cancel out x. So what we are going to have is 1. Any number that divides itself is going to give us 1. So if you have 2 divided by 2, it's going to give us 1. If you have 4 divided by 4, it's going to give us 1. If you have 4x divided by 4x, it's also going to give us 1. Okay? So this is what it means to factorize an algebra. Just a little recap from yesterday's class. But today we are looking at factorization by grouping. So let's say we have something like this. X raised to power 3 plus 3x raised to power 2 plus 10x plus 30. Okay? So now, there is a little difference between this and this. There's a little difference between this algebra here and this algebra here. In this algebra, we have only two terms, 1, 2. But in this one, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So how do we factorize this one? In order to factorize it, we are going to do grouping. So we pick 2, group them together. We pick another set of 2, group them together. That is the way to factorize by grouping. Okay? So let's look at this one. Here we have x raised to power 3 plus x raised to power 3x raised to power 2. We can pick them as one group. Here we have 10x and 30. We can pick this as another group. But what is very important is for you to pick a group, you must make sure that they have something in common. Okay? For you to pick a group, you must make sure that they have something in common. If they don't have something in common, then you cannot pick them as a group. So let's look at x raised to power 3 and 3x raised to power 2. Do they have something in common? 3x raised to power 3 plus 3x raised to power 2. If you look at this group, do they have something in common? Yes, they have something in common. You have x here, you have x here. So they have something in common. Therefore, they can be placed in one group. They can be placed in one group. Let's look at the second proposed group. 10x and 30. Do they have something in common? 10 is common, okay? Because 10 can divide 10x and 10 can divide 30. So this means we are okay to have this in one group, and we're also okay to have this one in one group. Okay, so let's do that together. Let's consider this group. Let's bring them together. X raised to power 3 plus 3x raised to power 2. So we have it in one group, plus 10x plus 30, second group. Okay? So now let's focus on this group. Looking at this group, what is common between x raised to power 3 and 3x raised to power 2? Let's write down x raised to power 3. X raised to power 3 is x multiplied by x multiplied by x. Okay? What is 3x raised to power 2? 3x raised to power 2 is 3 multiplied by x multiplied by x. Okay? X raised to power 3 is x multiplying itself 3 times. 3x raised to power 2 is 3 multiplied by x multiplied by x. So let's see what is common. Here, x is common here. X is common here. Do we have any other thing that is common? No. So that means what is common is x times x. And x times x is equal to x squared. Okay? X multiplied by x is equal to x squared. But in order to do it quickly, as I said in the previous class, once you have an alphabet raised to power 3 and an alphabet raised to power 2, you immediately pick the smaller power. Okay? If you have x raised to power 5 and x raised to power 2, you pick x raised to power 2. If you have x raised to power 10 and x raised to power 7, you pick x raised to power 7. As I said, x raised to power 3 and 3x raised to power 2. What is common is x raised to power 2. I said earlier that once you have an alphabet to the power of 3, an alphabet to the power of 2, you pick the smaller power as the common value. Okay? So we bring it outside this bracket, so x to the power of 2. And then we open the bracket again. Now, what is outside the bracket will be used to divide each of these values to get the new occupants of the bracket. Okay? So x raised to power 3 divided by x raised to power 2. X raised to power 3 is x multiplied by x multiplied by x, divided by x raised to power 2, x multiplied by x. Okay? So x will cancel x will cancel x. So what we have left is x. So that is what we are going to put in the bracket. So inside this bracket we are going to put x. We bring the plus sign down. Okay? Next, we use x raised to power 2 to divide 3x raised to power 2. So let's do that. 3x raised to power 2 is 3 multiplied by x multiplied by x, divided by x raised to power 2, which is x multiplied by x. So let's cancel out. X will cancel out x will cancel out x. So what are we going to have be having left? We have 3. So this value here is what we are going to put inside the bracket, and then we close the bracket. Okay, so we are done with this first group. We have factorized this first group. The next thing we are going to do is go to the second group. Before we go to the second group, make sure we put the plus sign here. Then we go to the second group. Now in this second group, what do we have common? What is common? We have x here, but there's no x here, so the alphabet is not common. Okay, let's look at the numbers. 10 and 30. What is the highest number that can divide both 10 and 30? What is the highest number that can divide both 10 and 30? Can someone give an answer to that? 10. So 10 is common, so we have 10. And then we open the bracket. We open the bracket because we observe that there is no common alphabet. X is here, but there is no x here. Okay? So what we are going to do now, this 10 here is going to divide each of these values. So 10x divided by 10. 10x is 10 multiplied by x divided by 10. Okay? So 10 is going to cancel out 10. What we are going to have left is x. So this x, we are going to put it inside the bracket. And then we bring this plus sign down. Okay, the next we are going to do is 30 divided by 10. That is simple. 30 divided by 10 is going to give us 3. So we have 3. And we close the bracket. Okay, one way to confirm that you are on the right track, is what you have, the values you have in the bracket must be the same. So if you observe that the values in the bracket are not the same, then you need to go through the process once again. Okay? So if the values in the bracket are not the same, then you need to go through the process once again. But as you can see here, the values in the bracket are the same, so we're on the right track. The next thing we need to do is pick the values outside the bracket and put them in a new bracket. Okay? So this value is outside the bracket, this value is outside the bracket, so we'll bring them together in a new bracket. So this will be x squared plus 10. So they have their new bracket. Okay? And then, since these two are the same, we just pick one of them. Okay? We pick one of them to create a new bracket. So remember, I said factorization of algebra in simple terms is introduction of brackets to an algebra. So at the beginning of the question, this question did not have any bracket, and we are told to factorize it. This becomes the answer. So we have gotten the factors of this algebra. 2 sets of algebra that can multiply themselves to give us this algebra. Okay? So if you multiply these two, at the end of the day, you're going to get this. That process is called expansion of algebra. We're going to look at that process in our next class. How to move from this point back to this point. Moving from this point to this point is called expansion of algebra. Moving from this point to this point is called factorization of algebra. Okay? So we're going to look at this next example. So this class, I have a replay of the class on my YouTube channel. Okay, Agbani Maths Academy on YouTube. So just the same name I have on TikTok is the same name on YouTube. So in case you miss any of my classes, you can go to YouTube and watch it. You can watch a replay of this particular class on YouTube. Okay. Yesterday's class is also on YouTube. In yesterday's class, we looked at introduction to algebra, and we also looked at factorization of simpler algebras. Okay, so that will help you to understand what we are doing right now. So let's solve another example. So we have 2x to the power of 3 minus 5x to the power of 2 plus 18x minus 45. Okay, so we are expected to factorize this. In order to factorize this, as we did in the last example, we are going to look at this this algebra in groups, okay? So we are going to pick this first two as the first group, this second and this third and fourth as the second group. Now, I also said that for you to pick a set of algebra as one group, you must ensure that they have something in common. Now, looking at this, 2x raised to power 3 minus 5x raised to power 2, do they have something in common? Is there anything you can see here that you can also see here? Yeah, can somebody tell me what can you see here and here? 2x power 2, okay? Okay? So let's look at it together. Now, if you look at this, you have the number here is 2 and 5. There's nothing common between 2 and 5. The number, between the numbers, there's nothing common. There's no number that can divide both 2 and 5 without leaving a remainder. So with the numbers, there's nothing common. But let's look at the alphabet. We have x raised to power 3 and we have x raised to power 2. X is common. So this means we are okay. Okay? We are okay. Let's look at this other side. 18x and 45. Here, we have x. On this other side, there is no x. Does it mean that there is nothing in common? There is something in common. There is a number that can divide both 18 and 45 without leaving a remainder. There are numbers, not just one number. There are numbers that can divide both 18, okay, correct? So the numbers that can divide both 18 and 45, we have 3 and we also have 9. But among these two, we are going to pick the largest one or the larger one. So 3 can divide 18, 3 can divide 45, 9 can divide 18, 9 can divide 45 without leaving a remainder. But for the purpose of what we are doing, we are going to pick the highest common factor, the largest number that can divide both 18 and 45 without leaving a remainder. Okay? So let's go. So let's put each one in their group. The first group contains 2x raised to power 3 minus 5x raised to power 2. That's our first group. The second group is 18x minus 45. That's the second group. So now we can factorize each group separately. Okay? So let's look at the first group. Let's look at among the numbers, do we have anything in common? 2 and 5. Nothing is common. There is no number that can divide both 2 and 5 without leaving a remainder. Okay? There's no number that can divide both 2 and 5 without leaving a remainder. So we are done with the number. Let's go to alphabet. X raised to power 3. Let's write it down. X raised to power 3 is x times x times x. X raised to power 2 is x times x. So among these two, what is common? You have x is common here. You have x is common here. So what is common is x times x. X times x is the same thing as x squared. So what is common is x squared. Remember I said that when you have an alphabet appearing twice, pick the one with the smaller power. Okay? Automatically pick the one with the smaller power. So the smaller power is x raised to power 2. That's what is common. So bring it outside the bracket and we open the bracket. 2x raised to power 3 divided by x raised to power 2. 2 divided by, there's an invisible 1 here. So 2 divided by 1 is 2. X raised to power 3 divided by x raised to power 2. X raised to power 3 divided by x raised to power 2. Let's look at it. X raised to power 3 is x times x times x. Divided by x raised to power 2 is x times x. X will cancel out x will cancel out x. So what we have left is x. Okay, someone got the answer 2x, so we have x here. So we are done with this. We move to this, but before that we put the subtraction sign. 5 divided by 1 is 5. X raised to power 2 divided by x raised to power 2, they are the same, therefore the answer will be 1. When a number divides itself, the answer is 1. When an alphabet divides itself, the answer is 1. So x squared divided by x squared is going to give you 1. Okay? So both of them will cancel out. So what we are going to be left here with is 5. The 5 will be here. Next we bring our plus sign down, and then we look at 18x and 45. Between 18 and 45, we have already gotten the highest common factor to be 9. Okay, so that's what is common. Okay, so 18 divided by 9 is 2, and x divided by, there's no alphabet here, so bring down x, minus 45 divided by 9 is 5. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is look at the bracket, the values inside the bracket, to see if what we have inside the bracket is the same. Here we have 2x minus 5. Here we have 2x minus 5. So since we have the same values in both brackets, that means we're on the right track. Next thing we're going to do is the values outside the bracket, we put them in one bracket. So let's do that. X squared plus 9, and then we pick one of the two similar values, 2x minus 5. So what we have done is we have factorized this algebraic expression to become this. I guess it's very easy. Okay, so we're going to look at a third example that is a little bit different from what we have been doing. Let's look at an example here. 10x to the power of 3 plus 20x to the power of 2 minus x minus 2. We have 10x to the power of 3 plus 20x to the power of 2 minus x minus 2. Okay? Now, we said that the first thing we need to do is check if is to group the values, but we must also observe if what we are grouping have similar values in them. What I mean is there anything common between these two, and is there anything common between these two? We can decide to go the way it is, or we can decide to rearrange what we have and still get the same answer. Okay, so we can leave it the way it is, or we can decide to rearrange what we have. So let's try to rearrange. Let's move minus x over this way and move plus 20 over this way. So what I mean is we can have 10x raised to the power 3. Let's move x this way, but whenever you are moving any value, you must move the sign in front of it. So the sign in front of x is minus, so we move it with the sign. And then we can put this plus 20x raised to the power 2 minus 2. So we are just rearranging it for convenience. So if you look at this point, there is something in common. What is common here is x. There is x here and there is x here. If you look at this point, there is something in common. What is common here is 2. 2 can divide 20 and 2 can divide 2. So we have something in common, okay, in both groups. So let's put the groups in order. So in group 1, we are going to have 10x raised to the power 3 minus x, plus in group 2, we are going to have 20x squared minus 2. So in both groups, we have something in common. So let's look at the first group. The first group, do we have something in common? X is common. So what is common will be brought outside the bracket. So we bring it outside the bracket, x, and we open the bracket again. 10x to the power of 3 divided by x. So 10x to the power of 3 divided by x. So 1x is going to cancel out 1x. So we are going to have 10x to the power of 2. Okay? 10x to the power of 2. So 10x to the power of 2 minus x divided by x is going to give us 1. any number divided by itself, or any value divided by itself, will give us 1. So we have 1. So we bring the plus sign down. Oh, sorry. So we look at the second group. The second group, we have something in common. What do we have in common? What do we have in common in the second group? 2. So we bring 2 out of the bracket. 20 divided by 2 is going to give us 10. We have x squared here. There is no x here, so we bring x squared down. Minus 2 divided by 2 is going to give us 1. Remember, minus divided by plus is going to give us minus. So that's why we have minus there. Minus divided by plus is going to give us minus. So now let's look at what we have in the bracket. If what we have in the bracket is the same. Here we have 10x squared minus 1. Here we have 10x squared minus 1. So what we have in the bracket are the same. The next thing we're going to do is we put the values outside the bracket into one new bracket. So this will be x plus 2. And since we have the same values in both brackets, we pick one of them and put it in one bracket. So that becomes the answer to the question. That becomes the answer to the question. It's very simple. So let's have one class work. Let's see who is going to get the answer the fastest. Okay, so we have x squared, x raised to the power 3 minus 5x raised to the power 2. I don't know how you'll be able to write down the answer, but just try it out. Even if you can't write the answer in the comment section, just try it out, because I'm rounding up for today. So we have x raised to the power 3 minus 5x raised to the power 2 plus 5x minus 25. You can support my platform by subscribing to my YouTube channel. Has anybody gotten the answer yet? Has anybody gotten the answer? It's just for your personal practice. So I'll be ending today's live very soon. But please support my platform by subscribing to my YouTube channel. Has anybody gotten the answer? So thank you so much for your time. Everyone that joined the live, everyone that gifted me, I appreciate your time. Have a wonderful night rest, everyone. Good night.